All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice going tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was a financial advisor, and advisors are the main clients we serve. So, my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Michael Bernberg. Michael, Mickey, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I've been in the business for 20 years. Before that, I had several other careers. I was in the plastics business. I must have watched the movie The Graduate or something, when I was
Plastics.
getting out of college. And I also had a management consulting practice for about 15 years. So I've, pretty much been there, done that throughout my career. I live in Florida and Chicago. And if I'm not working with clients, there's a pretty good chance I'm on the golf course, playing my guitar, playing chess or backgammon, um, eating at good restaurants and traveling the world.
Mm, that sounds pretty nice, Mickey. That's awesome. So you were a well-rounded individual with many fun interests on the side as well. That's really great. So I normally like to start the show with asking how you found yourself in this industry. It sounds like you started by watching The Graduate and focused on plastics for a little while, and then consulting. How did you then make your way into this industry?
Well, I've always had an interest in finance. I went back to school after I graduated from Illinois and got myself an MBA in finance and marketing,
Mm,
um, which eventually became a valuable tool when um, I started my own consulting practice. I was doing management consulting for 15 years, and we had a focus on strategic planning. I actually taught strategic planning at an online university for 10 years. So during all this time, I started investing. Uh, I think the first job I had, in 1974, they passed the IRA law, and I started putting money into IRAs and investing it. So I had a strong interest in investing, and my consulting practice was going well until the planes hit the tower, and I was dealing with a lot of small businesses, closely held. When I say small, I'm talking about oh, under $25 million of revenue,
mm.
and they
Minuscule.
went, yeah, they went in, yeah, right. They went into a shell. Um, and actually, it was my wife who suggested to me, she said, Mickey, you love dealing with the investments. You've been, working with our family. Why don't you go talk to some people? So I did, and Merrill Lynch made me an offer that was very nice, and I got into their training program. Um, I worked at Merrill Lynch for 8 years, built a practice, and then moved over to Ameriprise. I liked the independence of Ameriprise. We weren't at that time associated with a bank, and I've been there for going on 13 years now. So,
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you initially get traction at Merrill Lynch? How'd you get momentum? How'd you find clients and build your book of business?
well, initially I did all of the things that young in the business advisors do, seminars and cold calls and all of that stuff. And I pretty much, lots and lots of networking. There's a a place called the Eggshell Cafe, which I was having breakfast at about 4 days a week. So, I mean, with somebody else. Uh, and I eventually, determined that the best course for me was going to be through personal introductions. You know, the return I was getting from doing all of those different things, I got business out of it, but it just didn't justify the cost and the effort. And so I made some connections, and pretty much my business is strictly referral now, personal introductions. So, I was fortunate enough to be introduced to a very high net worth individual. And, then of course I also happened to be in the right place at the right time. I'll tell you one story that I find both amusing and amazing. So my son was going into his senior year in college, and he was in town. He went to school at Kansas, and there was a village festival in Northbrook, which is the town that we live in up in Chicagoland. So I get a call, and this is about 3 or 4 days before he's got to drive back to Kansas. So I get a call at 9:30 that he was walking back to where he'd parked his car on a side street, and somebody hit it. Somebody was driving down the street and hit his car. So I immediately went over there, of course, and when we arrived, we found that the driver of the other car was a teenager, actually a year or two younger than Henry, at the same school. Henry is my son, and his parents were there, as was the police officer writing a ticket. So the father says to me, I'd really like to keep this away from the insurance agents. And I said, well, I have no desire to show up in court and testify against your son as long as my son can be made whole. So he said, well, what's that going to take? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll call you and let you know. So my son, being under 25, he can't rent a car. So he's going to have to fly to Kansas. He's going to have to fly back. His car is going to have to be fixed. All of these, different issues have to be dealt with. So I looked into what it would cost, and I called him and I told him, and he went, what? It can't be that much for the damage that was done. And I said, well, I'm not trying to take any advantage of you. And I just went down the list of how that number came up. So he said, okay, I see that. How about if I come over to your office tomorrow and bring a check? I said, that'd be fine. So he comes over and brings me the check. And as I'm walking him out to the elevator, he says, I really like the way you handled this situation. What's your minimum? So at the time I told him, well, my minimum's $250. He said, well, I'll be in touch. And as a result of that, between him, I've got his new wife and 3 sons. I don't know, it's about a $4 million relationship. So, one of the ways I built my business is, I've tried to get my son to park his car on side streets near a festival and more often, but, so I built it just by, trying to do what I say, and, and just be somebody who has integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe get your son a couple extra cars as well, and just be like, just park them.
Well, he just bought his first car, so
yeah.
But that's one way. And of course, one of the other things I used to do was when I was first starting out was I'd go out to the golf course once a week as a single. And, typically you get paired up with somebody. I don't know if you play golf, Chris, or not, but if you do, and you wind up playing with strangers, and fourth or sixth hole. So what do you do? Well, I told them what I do. So I got one client. It was kind of amusing because we started playing the geography game. Where'd you go to school? Oh, I went to Illinois. Oh, really? When were you there? Well, I was there then. Oh, really? I was there then too. Where'd you live? Well, I lived at Garner Hall. Really? I lived at Garner Hall. What's your name again? So I actually got paired up with somebody that had lived on my floor in my dorm, back more years ago than I'm going to mention. So, again, a lot of this game is, you have to be good at what you do. You have to be, honest. You have to be knowledgeable. But you also have to be at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing that you're doing something that you enjoy and you're just kind of putting yourself out there, and then good things seem to happen. And, saying double so with just like being a decent human being, with the whole car accident situation. It sounds like good karma and good vibes to me, Mickey.
Well, that's what I try and do. I'm fortunate that I'm able to associate with people who have investable assets, and I'm not shy about saying what I do, and that's it. And then if they're interested in talking to me, that's great. And if there's a fit between what they need and what I can offer, that's great too. If there's not, well, it's your shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Those are awesome stories. Thank you for sharing those. So we have a lot of guests on who, the financial advisory services are their second or third career, and often they find themselves serving the folks from their previous career. Like, we've had airline pilots and teachers, and we had a guy yesterday. He was an orthodontist, still is an orthodontist, and now he's also a financial advisor for orthodontists. um, so that's a long-winded way of asking, like, did you find yourself also serving folks from previous careers because you understand that and have connections there, or were there any other types of niches that you found yourself serving more than others?
Well, there was a little bit of that, but mostly I built my career in financial services, from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the things that I mentioned to you, but mostly I was fortunate that I joined a networking group, and I met somebody who was an accountant whose love of golf is probably similar to my own. And we hit it off. And so he became a center of influence. I met somebody it was my first year at a club that I joined after I became a financial advisor, and we got paired up on some Saturday morning games. Turned out that we decided to play the member together, and we just demolished the field. He was a 20 handicapper who hit the ball further than I do. I'm high single digits, and so he could make a birdie from anywhere, and I presumably was the stability of the team. So turns out he's an estate planning attorney. So again, another center of influence. So
Wow.
I think, that's really how I built my business.
Yeah, no, that's great. Building your business through your passions and hobbies. It's a beautiful way to do it, Mickey.
Well, I feel like, if you aren't doing things that you like, it becomes work. And I prefer to, do the things I really enjoy. And wow, they're paying me for this.
Yeah, I could say the same thing about what we're doing right now. I super enjoy hearing stories from folks like yourself. Not everyone is as good at telling the stories as you are, though. So this is an extra treat. So, you were at Merrill Lynch for 8 years, and then you decided to go a more independent route and go towards Ameriprise. Can you talk about you know, your mindset, your decision around there, like why it was important and valuable, and how the more independent minded Ameriprise has benefited your practice?
Well, the biggest thing is, the focus. Ameriprise isn't a bank, so there isn't as much of a focus on cash management issues. And um, so really they left me alone, and I could focus strictly on doing whatever I thought was in the best interest of my client, um, without anybody saying, "Hey, can you get people to take loans, or can you get people to make deposits?" So I have never strayed from that. I never worry about, whether this product or that product's going to pay me more. You do what's best for the client. And at the end of the day, like you use the term, which goes back to some of my college days, it's good karma, and things work out. And, fortunately they have.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. So, my goal with this podcast is obviously just to make as much great high value content for financial advisors and business owners as humanly possible, while shining a great spotlight on exceptional advisors and business owners. But kind of my secret ulterior motive is to get as many advisors to go the independent route as possible, because it just seems, I'm not even allowed to interview folks from the big wirehouses. Like they're just forbidden from going on podcasts, which seems crazy. Um, so to any, advisor listeners out there, watchers who maybe are at big wirehouses, can you, just share, did it increase your growth? Did it improve your quality of life? How did it tangibly, improve your situation, and would you recommend it?
Well, first of all, I am not an independent. I am an employee of Ameriprise. So I
Hmm.
didn't go they have two channels. So I'm not in the independent channel. But, the biggest thing I would say is being able to run the kind of business that I want to run without anybody looking over my shoulder and saying, "Hey, you should do this or do that." Because I do things a little bit differently than a lot of other people. Um, I do a lot of option trading for my clients because I find that, at least for me, options are a way of reducing the volatility of people's portfolios. Uh, for example, um, if I want to buy a stock and I sell a call option that's out of the money against that stock, then I've got the premium, which gives me a little bit of downside protection. On the other side of the coin, if I want to buy a stock, uh, I can sell a put option at a price that might be below the current market and get a premium for that. So either I get to keep the premium if the stock doesn't go down, or I get the stock at a cheaper price than if I bought it today.
Hmm.
And I can make some nice returns. It's a very effective strategy when the market is flat, when the market is down, um, and when the market is rising a little bit. Um, Selling call options when the market's up 25%, like it has been each of the last 2 years, not so much. You will still make good money for your clients, but you will leave money on the table. So,
Hmm.
clients have to be willing to accept the fact that they might only make 10 or 15% when the market's up 25%. But most clients would be quite happy with 10%.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Now, of course, there's no guarantees that that's going to work out. If you have a situation back like 2007, 2008, well, everybody's gonna pay. But
Mm-hmm.
but we did better back then than the um, S&P and Dow. We weren't down as much as that. So again,
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit of a cushion.
Mm-hmm. Were you down less because of the options?
Well, that was one of the factors.
Yeah.
Um, it might have also been some good stock selection, but you get a situation like that, and I don't think we're going to see anything like that again soon. But that's again is my opinion on it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you get a situation like that, and everything's getting sold. Good companies, bad companies, everything. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, right now, I think what's happening with the volatility in the market is that there are a lot of people who had big gains over the last couple of years and didn't want to sell them in December because they would have had to pay taxes in April. If they wait until January, they get to pay their taxes a year from April. So I think that's, that and the fact that we have a new administration coming in and we're not 100% sure what they're going to do. There's been talk of tariffs and all that other stuff, creates uncertainty. And the one thing the market doesn't like is uncertainty. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's my personal opinion uh, that we're going to have a decent year this year. Um, Unlikely to do what we've done the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Are there specific tea leaves you look to make these assessments?
Well, you listen to what the Fed's saying, and you listen to what's going on in Washington, and the other thing is you glean all the information you can with estimates as to what S&P earnings are going to be and what sectors, and it's just kind of being out there with your eyes and ears open.
Mm-hmm.
And then occasionally a client comes along and says something to you because, again, I'm not a believer that every good idea is generated in-house. I've had clients say, "Hey, what do you think about this particular investment?" And, the answer could be, "Oh, I think it's really good. I think it's really risky," or "I don't know. Let me look into it." Well, sometimes you look into it and say, "Hey, you know what? This looks interesting." And the next thing you know, you've mentioned that investment to a bunch of other clients as well.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Nice. Awesome. So, you mentioned your firm is referral only at this point.
Well, that's my practice, not the firm.
I'm
The
sorry,
firm.
your practice. Yeah, yeah. Your practice is firm only. Is there a specific way you go about like asking for referrals, receiving referrals, and encouraging referrals?
Well, it's a situation where if I've done well with a client, and most of my clients have been with me for years, like, "Hey, Chris, you have anybody that you know who would benefit from the relationship that you and I have? I'd be happy to, have lunch with you and them, or dinner with you and them, or play golf with you and them, or, you know, um, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't."
Hmm. Okay, awesome. And are you actively growing the firm, or are you kind of pretty picky on new clients?
Well, when I first started in the business, and I've talked to a lot of other people who were in that same situation, the criteria for taking on a client was, could they cloud a mirror and sign their name? No. Nowadays, um, I've discovered that you spend as much or more time with a small client than somebody who has lots of assets.
Hmm.
So, I do my best work with $1 million clients. I'll always take a referral because I want to make sure that the referring source knows that I'm open for business. So,
Mhm.
if you called me up and you said, "Hey, my son has $50,000. Can you help him?" I would do it. Because the next referral you might make might be $2 million. But typically, if somebody called out of the blue that I didn't know, I probably would refer them to somebody else in my office if they had less than $500,000.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. Awesome. Awesome. So, in preparing for this interview, my team puts together pretty detailed dossier on you, and I always read through it before any interview. And I understand one of your interests is science fiction.
It is. I've been reading science fiction since I was 8 or 10 years old when my father brought home I, Robot by
Mm,
Isaac Asimov, and I devoured that stuff. Um, I have more science fiction books on my shelves than some libraries do. I, pretty much discovered that if I find somebody who tells a good story, I'll read everything they've written.
mm,
So, and as a matter of fact, I remember for AP English, my senior year in high school, we had to do a report on an American author, and I chose Isaac Asimov for that,
mhm,
which was kind of interesting because science fiction has generally not been taken as seriously as some other forms of literature. So
mhm,
finding um, critical write-ups on science fiction authors is hard to do. So I kind of just, you know, did my own analysis of his work. So, and it's one thing I still do. Just about every evening, the last thing I do before I go to bed is, brush my teeth and go sit in a chair and read science fiction until my eyes get heavy. And the chair's about 10 feet from the bed. Um, so I'm reading science fiction just about every day. Uh,
Wow.
I'd read enough non-science fiction during the day, when I'm trying to keep
Yeah.
up with what's going on in the world of investing.
Hmm. Yeah. Does it kind of scare you how close we're getting to some of those science fiction books? Like how the news maybe reflects what you read, sci-fi.
Well, what's going on with global warming is of concern. Um,
Hmm.
there are a couple of science fiction books that I think are somewhat uh, predictive of things, and I'm not going to really go into them because it's not all that um, what's the word, optimistic, in
Hmm.
terms of what they say is going to happen. Um, I have my own thoughts on it, which I don't think are appropriate to share in this interview. So,
Hmm.
um, so I read it as mostly it's a nice escape because some of the stuff I read is total fantasy. I mean, you read Lord of the Rings or the Foundation trilogy, um, and actually right now I'm finishing up the Wheel of Time. I just finished volume 13. I've got one more to go before, like, and and I like to say that these books are Mitchnerian in size. If you've read any James A. Michener, and one of the funniest things I ever saw uh, on TV was uh, there's the Simpsons are walking past a bookstore, and there's a sign in the bookstore that says Michener sale $5.99 a pound.
Yeah. I'm a huge Simpsons fan as well. So that's great. So I'm also a huge sci-fi fan. And I'm not, you know. 1% as well read as you are, but I've read a little bit of the Foundation series and some Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke and
Yep.
those cats. Any recommendations for fellow sci-fi lover?
Well, I think Paul Anderson tells a very good story. If you're going with the classics, Silverberg is another name that you should look into. I read some interesting, probably more fantasy than science fiction by Raymond Feist. There's just a myriad of authors.
Mm-hmm.
Piers Anthony is very, there's written a lot of stuff. There's just dozens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big Philip K. Dick fan as well. I've probably read the most of his stuff.
Yeah, he writes a little bit darker than some of the
Yeah,
others.
yeah.
Do what does it do? Robots Dream of Electric Sheep.
Yes. Yeah, I saw Blade Runner in early high school, and I was just like, "What did I just watch?" And I was like, to this day, it's still like my favorite movie. So big fan of that guy. Awesome. All right, well, we're coming towards the end of our time. This has been awesome. Making my final question for you, open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like, and that question is, what are you working towards?
Wow. Well, I'm working towards improving my guitar playing. We've been playing some open mics,
Hey.
and it's it's amazing how I hear every mistake that I make, and the audience, for the most part, I don't think is even aware of them. Uh, I'm constantly working on trying to get the ball in the hole. It's you have days when I'm driving the ball great and can't hit an iron, or hitting greens in regulation and missing putts. So I'm working on that. Um, Obviously, I'm trying to keep myself abreast of what I need to do to serve my clients. We do a lot of financial planning, and that's something that really I was well suited for, because I did strategic planning for businesses, and really I consider the process to be the same. You look at your assets and your liabilities, you look at your income and your expenditures, you look at your goals, you create a strategy to achieve those goals, and then you look at the tactics you need to implement those strategies. And I always used to say, when I was consulting, that it's the same thing whether you're doing gym shoes or jet planes. Same process, obviously different knowledge pieces, but you're doing the same thing. So I'm just working on that. I don't really think about it as working towards something. It's I suppose I'm considered a little bit of a competitive individual. So I shot a 78 the other day, and I
Oh,
wish it had been a 75 because I missed a few shots. So it's one of
yeah.
these deals where it's kind of like when I used to talk about vision and mission. So the vision is to go east. Well, okay, so if you're in Chicago and you go east, you wind up in Ohio, and then Pennsylvania, and then New York, but you can still go further east, and you wind up going all the way around the globe, and you can still go east. So it's the same thing with the other pursuits in my life.
Yeah.
My goals are to read the next good science fiction book, to learn a new song, to I was I'd asked you to ask me about it, but you didn't. I had my first hole in one in 38 years a month and a half ago. So
Oh my gosh.
I'm looking for the next one. So that's what I'm working towards. So
Yeah. That's
I
amazing.
guess if you enjoy doing it, it isn't work. So,
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the ultimate goal, is to be the person who never worked a day in their life.
Hmm.
Just pursued things that interested them. I love the fact that what I'm doing now helps people. It's not just my own retirement that I'm working towards, but I'm working towards other people's retirements. I'm working towards helping them pass their money along to the next generation. Um, I'm working towards all those things, but it's not work because I enjoy doing it.
Hmm. Absolutely. And my apologies for forgetting to bring that up. Can you give us a quick recap on the hole in one?
Well, 141 yards to a pin on the back of the green, very slight helping breeze. My stock 9 iron is a 135-yard club, so I figured, you know, that's about right. I hit the shot, not quite as well as I would have liked to, but it was straight on line, and landed well short of the pin, and started rolling. And I was thinking, well, this might work out. And one of my friends is saying, let's go into the hole. And I said, oh, no, don't go over the green. Don't go over the green. And then it started slowing down. And as got near the flag, it made about a 6-inch left hand turn. And I saw it go in.
Man,
So,
how are you feeling in that moment?
um, happy, surprised, stunned, um, you know, uh, uh, and the amazing thing is I've hit a lot better shots over the years and had golf balls, hanging on the cup, on the front of the cup, on the back of the cup. I've seen ball marks uh, on a straight line to the ball with the cup in the middle. The ball marks behind the cup and the balls in front of the cup. The other, lots
Mhm.
of good shots. I've pulled off from the fairway a few times. Um, I had a ball I've had a couple shots hit the stick and bounce away. Um, so much better shots than this one, but it went in.
Mhm.
Um, so again, it's there's luck involved in things. It's a good.
Yeah.
So now you've
Wow.
asked me that question. So thank you. I get to brag about something that was a nice accomplishment.
No,
And
that's incredible. Yeah.
then of course maybe the best part of it all is when you're walking around the driving range of the club, having people say, "Hey, congratulations," and oh, I didn't know you knew who I was.
Yeah, yeah. Now you're a celebrity at the club.
Well, it lasted for a day or two until a couple other people made holes in one, and then I was old news.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you'll be back there soon enough.
Well, let's hope. But
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Mickey, well, this has been a real pleasure, man. Really enjoyed talking to you. You're a great storyteller. I think all of the reading you've done has influenced your oratory ability, and I really enjoyed your stories and all the wisdom and fun that you shared today. And I'll be excited to continue watching your journey. Where can my audience find out more about you?
well, I have a website. Um, if they look up Ameriprise in my name, and I think it's BERNBERG, then they'll find my personal website, and that's got all my contact information. It's got some profile information, and the kinds of things, my approach, which again is you know very much a planning approach. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? How do we get there?
Hmm.
And so then they can email me or call me, and I'd be happy to dispense what little wisdom I might have to them.
Awesome. That you have lots of wisdom. All right. Well, thank you again, Mickey. This was awesome. To all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody.